Hey everybody, if you want to skip this intro and go straight to the part where I talk about the new Pokemon designs, you can go right to this minute mark here. Some of you don't know the history, but some of you do, and I figured I'd respect your time. Enjoy the video! We've talked about the Nintendo trade shows, sometimes titled Space World in 1995, 96, and 2000. But somehow, I don't think we've directly talked about Space World 1997 before. There was very little at this year's show in terms of console gaming with the struggling 64DD, so this show's focus was on the upcoming Game Boy game Pokémon Gold and Silver. This demo version of the game came 2 years before the final ones were released in Japan, and there were reportedly a number of differences in this version compared to the final games. Big reports I remember hearing over the years included talk of a skateboard that characters could ride instead of a bike, different map locations, and 2 starter Pokemon completely different than the ones we eventually got. Rumors about this Space World demo have been swirling for 20 years. Over the last 5 years or so, info has slowly trickled out about these early versions of Gold and Silver. May 2012, a Japanese webmaster from the Scrap Pokemon support group writes about items and animations within the final Gold and Silver's code that suggest the skateboard action was indeed real. October 2013, an image of the back sprite of the Firestarter is tweeted by Twitter user Katsu Nagao. The photo wasn't actually from Space World, but a very similar promotional event that happened in early 1998. March 2017, a translated interview from a fan who attended the original Space World 97 is released on Glitterberry. October 2017, Japanese footage lost for decades of the Space World 97 event makes its way to YouTube. One of the most interesting things from this demo is a prototype design for everyone's favorite mascot, Hoppip. Late May 2018, Pandora's box is opened. A ROM supposedly containing the Space World 1997 demo is released to the wild. A huge team at the cutting room floor had apparently been working with this ROM to compile information, translate the demo, and allow playability with a debug menu. There's an endless amount of information. Maps, data, moves, and most shockingly, hundreds of sprites, including a prototype Gen 2 Pokédex featuring dozens of designs never before seen by the masses. This is one of the biggest holy grails in game hacking history. I'm always skeptical about stuff like this, and this leak seems too good to be true. But the entirety of the leak backs up all video, images, and testimonials from Space World attendees over 20 years ago. I know very little about the fine details of 1990's Game Boy code, so if you're interested in hearing more about this project's research, I highly recommend you check out both the cutting room floor and the recently created Team Space World Twitter for future updates there. Today, I want to share some rapid thoughts about these never-before-seen designs. While I could be here for hours if I talked about every single detail here, I just want to talk about the designs that I found the most crucial or most surprising. And even with those cuts, that still leaves us with well over 50 Pokemon to talk about. This leak is insane! These designs have been hidden from the world for the last 20 years, but let's dig in. Oh yeah, and before I forget, introducing the Artists Gallery. I think it's truly amazing how many artists immediately went in to make their favorite version of all these new critters, so I took to the world of Twitter to gather some of my favorites. You can find each artist's Twitter handle here, and I've also linked each artist's website in the description as well. Oh, wow, right off the bat, before I can even get to the new stuff, we've got a weird one. Chikorita and Meganium look very similar to their final builds, but Bayleaf is doing something else. It looks like they went for a concept of a blooming flower here, and while in release, they decided to focus more on the line's legs and a sauropod-like appearance. This eye-looking thing down here is pretty spooky. Kinda reminds me of Jirachi. I like this Jirachi. This Jirachi kinda scares me. The next huge chunk of Pokemon that we're going to talk about are going to be the ones that are completely new designs, not related to any existing Pokemon as of now. Here's the line I've been waiting to see for years. Hanuguma, Borubea, and Dynabea make the Firestarter line we've been speculating about for decades. The back sprite for the small bear matches up with that tweet we found in 2015 as well. Also interesting information, but the reason the Metapod appeared red, I guess is because the player changed the color palette at some point in the Super Game Boy menu. I actually like this line the best of the original 3, and I'm curious why they were so adamant to alter 2 starter evolution trees after unveiling them to the public. And here's the water line, bringing another ancient illustration to life. I can see some similarities in body types used for the water starter lines in the future, but in general, these look pretty unlike anything we've seen before. Moving beyond the starters and into more new Pokemon brings us the water type Mamball 1 and the water and steel Ikari. I don't think that one is significant. It looks like a remnant of an early naming convention where they would put what part of an evolution line a Pokemon was in. Ikari is one of my absolute favorite unseen designs of the bunch. We'd later get sharks, and we'd later get anchors, but this combination is equal parts silly and awesome. It's pretty funny how many unused shark designs we've seen until Sharpedo actually became a thing. Yet another water steel type comes with Gurutessu. My thoughts immediately turned to Huntail when I saw this little guy, but I've had some people note similarities to Lantern, who interestingly isn't anywhere to be found in this demo. Next up are the adorable Thundercats, Kotora and Raitora. These guys make me think of chibi versions of today's Raikou. This wouldn't be the last time Pokemon would make some Thundercats, but I just love how puffy and not intimidating this line looks. Moving to the spooky side of things, we have the ghostly evolution line Norowara and Kyompan. The straw voodoo doll with a giant stake right through its heart is downright terrifying. Banette has a Pokedex entry about sticking pins into its own body, but this one is just letting it out for everybody to see. Well, we haven't quite seen a ghostly jumping vampire panda since. The closest modern Pokemon I can think of compared to this one is the Pancham line. It's no secret that Game Freak loves cats, and they've left even more off the table with the adorable dark-type Rinrin and Birunrun. In the demo, Rinrin was female only, and oh my god, they are so cute! Bamushika was one of the few newly revealed designs without an evolution line, but the most interesting thing to me was that this explosive seal had the unique water and fire typing. We wouldn't see that typing officially until 2015's Volcanion. And our final two brand new designs go to the ice type Urufuman and Warufu. These designs don't immediately scream ice to me, but I can definitely understand the warm coat for a cold climate thing. I also kind of like the Mimikyu thing they've got going on here, where the Pokemon looks like it's wearing the pelt of another Pokemon, and we don't know what the real thing looks like that's hiding inside. Our next category are Pokemon that do exist today, but have drastically different designs than we ended up getting. Noctowl, for example, was a whole lot rounder, like Hoothoot, and it stands on one foot, also like Hoothoot. Politoed had a grander and plumper appearance, and in this game evolved via an item called the Heartstone. Mitsuboshi here was apparently an early version of Ledian. I always thought it was weird that Ledian was called the 5-star Pokemon, and how so many of its Pokedex entries mentioned stars on its back despite not really having stars on its back. Perhaps this design is some sort of missing link. It's not the first time I've seen stars on a ladybug, but I definitely do like the final Ledian design a lot more. I've always wondered why the very fish-like Remoraid evolves into an octopus, but these older designs contextualize things a little bit. Both designs combined aquatic creatures with weaponry, with the revolver-like Remoraid and the tank-like Octillery. The final designs are a lot more subdued. This wouldn't be the first time Game Freak combined fish with guns, though. Check out 1994's Pulseman. Maybe an inspiration. Hitmontop has one eye. Or maybe these are the eyes, and it's got another one of those Jirachi eyes in the stomach? Sprites are weird, man, and all I know is that this sprite did end up getting a lot less weird. Murkrow had a literal witch's hat on its head to go with its broom of a tail. It's adorable, but unlike Remoraid's line, I do think the subtle final design works a little bit better. Porygon 2 is, what? That's Porygon 2? So at a first glance, this design bears a striking resemblance to Pondé Lion, a popular mascot of Japanese donut shop Mr. Donut. However, Pondé Lion and the Pondé Ring donut that it's based off of didn't release until 2003. In the end, I just think the design similarities between the donut dude and Porygon 2 are just a coincidence. I think what they were going for is the idea that Porygon is this jagged and crappy polygon rendering, while Porygon 2 has a better computer, so they used more advanced shapes, like rendering spheres. The final Porygon 2 still builds on this rounded design, but while looking a lot more like the original duck-like Porygon. Oh boy, you ready for Legendary Beasts? Because they all look super weird. Special you, Suicune. These designs are way less coherent than the ones we know today. They all look completely different from each other, and I think even Game Freak knew these weren't anywhere close to final designs. Their names are simply Fire, Thunder, and Water. Clear placeholders. I like to imagine that these designs were the ones that got cooked in the burned tower before Ho-Oh revived them and made them fabulous. Here's a concept for a Chansey evolution that would eventually be replaced by Blissey. What confuses me is that despite the giant heart on top of its head, they did not evolve by Heartstone in the demo. just regular level ups. And here's a little guy that we saw at the beginning of this video, Hoppip. It looks like the original Jump Lift line had no legs and was a lot more cat-like with a big tail. I wouldn't be shocked if the name Haneko was truly a pun on that Japanese word for cat, neko, after all. It's so dumb, but I love that stupid :3 thing. That. It looks like there was originally plans for a Leafeon as early as Generation 2, which would have made a second trio of Eevee evolutions. Also, while the design hasn't changed much, it seems Umbreon was originally a poison type, with evolution by the scrapped Poison Stone. Once again, this would make a Pokédex entry make a little more sense. Its gold entry mentions poisonous sweat from its pores. And speaking of evolutions that wouldn't officially happen until Gen 4, here's an early concept for a Lickitung evolution. I honestly like this one significantly better than the final design. No stupid Wi-Fi symbol, and yes, amazing mustache. Another one of my favorite designs of this batch is theoretically an early design for what would become Mantine. It can be your Angle or your Devil. Another Pokemon fighting two halves is the early design for Girafarig. Here, a normal and dark type. This is another design that had an artist's interpretation floating around the internet for ages. I'm not sure why they ended up giving it a change haunt butt instead, but this cat-dog-like design actually does make a lot more sense. Its name in both Japanese and English is a palindrome, spelled the same way going forward and back. In that same vein, this design is going the same way in each direction. Oh yeah, and Girafarig originally had a pre-evolution too. This floating ball called Twinzu, aka Twins. And if we're talking about babies now, it's time for a new section. There are a lot of babies in this version of the game. An absurd amount, an incomprehensible amount. For many babies that you know today, their designs can be described in 2 words.
It's spherical!
So many old designs are just adorable little ball versions of what we know today. My favorite of this pack by far is the early Mr. Mime baby variant. There are just so many babies in this game. Some of them, like this bear-looking Tyrogue, seem drastically different. While others, like Growlithe and Ponyta, look very similar to their original versions without a ton of changes. Of the fire types, I do enjoy this baby Vulpix a lot. This one has only 3 tails, which would build naturally into Vulpix's 6 tails, and 9 tails is 9... You get the idea. There's just an infinite amount of babies. Baby Paris, Baby Goldeen, Baby Grimer, Baby Doduo. Don't explain to me how we're supposed to go from 3 heads back to 2. And by far the most fan art I've seen of any design revealed in this entire prototype is of Baby Meowth, which seems to feature yen coins in its design to go along with Meowth's Koban coin and Persian's gem. While I wouldn't call it a baby Pokemon, it seems there was a design for a Pokemon basically just called Turban, looking identical to Slowking's hat. Nothing in the data suggests anything related to either of the Shelter lines or the Slowpoke lines, so it is kind of a strange anomaly. And the last baby I found interesting was Tangle, a pre-evolution to Tangela with one teeny little eye. This little guy is also interesting because it wasn't just a scrapped pre-evolution, Tangela even had a scrapped post-evolution as well. For our final segment, I want to talk about some evolutions that didn't end up happening. Here's the prototype evolution to Tangela. Still so much tangled hair that you can barely see anything of the face, but instead of eyes, all you can see is this Cheshire cat-like smile. It's kind of creepy. Gives me a vibe that reminds me of Porky from the Mother franchise. Here's a scrapped evolution for Quillfish. Despite the Harry Potter-like lightning bolt over its face, this Pokemon was coded simply as water type in this version of the game. Here's a unique scrapped evolution, a branching evolution line for a Pokemon that already got one. This tropical take on a stage after Weepinbell would have evolved via Poison Stone and would have been grass and poison, just like Victory Bell. Poison Stone is also how you'd originally get Blossom, which in this game is also grass and poison in this version, just like Vileplume. I like the idea of these Alolan forms before Alolan forms really existed, but I am glad they gave Blossom some diversity in the final version with its typing. Even Farfetch'd got an evolution, with a Japanese name that roughly means Madam. The leek became a cane, we got a Darkwing Duck-like mask, this thing's got sass, I love it. Another lost masked evolution belonged to Pinsir. This one looks like a mix between Pinsir, Heracross, and a Hollow from Bleach. I think it would have been cool to see this Pokemon as a dueling new Bug-type evolution to rival Scizor, but in the end it looks like they went with a completely different direction when they did finally give Pinsir a Mega Evolution. And last, but certainly not least, is an evolution to my favorite Pokemon. Animon, the Metal Coat evolution for Ditto, is a national treasure. His face is so silly! Just looks like he's perpetually screaming. Ah! This Pokemon was still normal type, and it seems to just be a Ditto with barely better stats. It is possible though that this Pokemon did end up influencing that Metal Powder item, the Generation 2 held item specifically made for Ditto to increase its defense. I think Animon's face perfectly sums up how all this new info dropping makes me feel. This is by far one of the most exciting Pokemon-related discoveries of all time. Between this, the scrap designs passed around in the Satoshi Tajiri manga, and a new game announcement all dropping in the same month, it has been an absurdly hyped time to be a Pokemon fan. A huge thank you to all the artists who sent me something. And a huge thank you as always to you, the viewer, for watching my stuff. I can't wait to see what new Pokemon discoveries await us in the future.